Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. My name is Mica Pointer, and today I'm going to be working with you on the cross stitch. Now, if you notice, I left up my diagram here in case you were working with me on the whip stitch, and that's because the cross stitch and the whip stitch have a few similarities between each other, because the cross stitch is also a hemming stitch, such as like at the bottom of pant legs in case you were taking those up for someone. And just like with the whip stitch, excuse me, you will also be taking small little nibbles of the ground fabric. So this involves the same preparation as for the whip stitch to do the cross stitch. So you're going to be taking the same swatch that you did the running stitch and the whip stitch on. You can see I finished my whip stitch and oh my gosh, it's invisible. It's like it's not even there. But anyway, you're going to take the opposite raw edge and just do the same thing as preparing for the whip stitch. You're going to do a 1/4 inch fold and then fold that up a 1/2 inch. Give that nice and tight. If you have an iron, feel free to give that a press. And while you have that hot, feel free to wax your threads. If you don't have an iron, that's okay. You can just kind of press and crease as much with your fingers, or you can take it over to the sharp edge of a table and just kind of rake it across that sharp edge. And I'm gonna do that right now, if you'll excuse me for just a moment. Hopefully it doesn't create too much of an earthquake for the camera right there. But let me see, there we are, nice and sharp. And if you want to give it a little bit of extra reinforcement so it doesn't go all loosey-goosey on you as you're working on it, feel free to take some of your straight pins from your little needle kit and hold that tight going through all of the layers. I think I'm going to put 3 on for this project, just to make sure it doesn't wander around on me and do anything that I don't want it to. So just one last one. There we go. Okay. And now we can get our needles prepped. I'm going to use the small eye hand needle and use some of this red thread because apparently I'm going with a Christmas theme for this one. Got the red and green going on. So just from fingertip to nose, no more than that. I'm using a little bit less just because of confined space that we're working in. But either way, let's see if I can get that threaded nice and easy. Come on, work with me here. What was that first try? Oh my gosh. Look at that. Okay, and we're gonna put the knot down in the end here. Okay, and I'm gonna do it a second time, just making a loop, sticking the end through the loop, and pulling tight. Okay, that should be good. Now, why this is called the cross stitch is because as we're going along, your stitches should be making like little X's as that's going along. So maybe it would help if I diagram it, but before we start, I just want to prep by saying that I am left-handed when it comes to sewing and writing and most of the things in my life. So for all of you out there who are also left-handed, great, this is just for you. For those of you who are right-handed, you may have to mirror or flip what I'm doing. I'll try to remember saying that this is kind of the right-handed way of doing it on occasion, but I forgot to do that in my last video, so hopefully I remember this time. Either way, it's just the direction that you're going to be working and like the starting point that's going to be different from right hand to left hand. The technique and the method behind it is the same no matter what. So just bearing that in mind. and going over with you, in case you weren't with me for my whip stitch video, some of the terms I'm going to be using when talking about the different parts of the folds that we have here. Now, let me see. Assuming that this is the inside of the pant leg, the wrong side, so to speak. This side right here is going to be the outside or the right side of the fabric, which when looking at it edgewise, it was going to be this side right here. So I may refer to that as the ground layer because as you're looking at it this way, it is on the bottom. The middle one right here, that 1/4 inch that we folded down, is going to be the middle layer for obvious reasons. And this layer right here, that 1/2 inch, is the top layer because that is the top side that we are looking at. Now, between the middle and the top layer, I'm going to refer to as the tunnel. So there are some instances where you would tunnel your stitches between those two, the middle and the top layer. And this fold right here is, I'm going to refer to as the fold. Obviously, there's another fold down here, but most all of our work is going to be centered around kind of the upper part, ouch, where we folded right there, okay? Don't stab yourself. No blood, no blood. Okay, so hopefully with that being understood, if we imagine that this is kind of expanded out, so our bottom layer is right here, our top fold is right here. We're going to start, let me see, maybe I can make this a little bit clearer. I don't know, that probably just made it worse. Anyway, so this is our 1/2 inch fold, our 1/4 inch is inside behind that, and our ground layer is down right here. So our knot is going to be put in case you were with me for the whip stitch video, just like we did before, just up here. I'm going to be starting on the right side. Me being left-handed, I'm going to be starting on the right side for this project because contrary to what you would expect, the point of your needle is always going to be directed towards the start of your project rather than the end. So that way, as you put it in and move on to the next stitch, it should naturally want to create that cross as you move down to the next stitch in the project. This is how it is done for left-handed folks. For right-handed folks, most likely, and again, it's all in what's most comfortable for you. If you find that doing it this way is easiest, then great, go ahead. But otherwise, most likely for you right-handed folks out there, you'd be starting on the left side of the fabric, just putting your knot in right on the fold there. And then moving down again, keeping the point facing towards the start, always pointing in the opposite direction of the way you're moving, so that as you put in the stitches, it just naturally wants to make that X. So let me demo or visualize or draw out how that's going to work, because you're going to put your knot right on the fold again, and again, point going towards the start of the project. You're going to put it into the ground layer, again taking that one nibble of just one thread coming out again. You're then going to bring it down to the top layer. You're going to tunnel a little bit between the top and the middle layer, never going through to the bottom layer when you're doing this tunnel. You don't want this one to be showing from the outside at all. You're going to be coming back up again and moving down, back up to the ground layer. So you see how I made that little X right there, okay? And again, keeping the point facing towards the start of your project, you're going to take another little single nibble of just one thread, just on the ground fabric right next to where the fold is. I guess my drawing went a little bit high right there, but either way, a nibble of one thread coming back up, moving down back to the top layer. So you see how I made another X. Tunnel a little ways. Again, between the top and the middle layer, never going all the way down to the ground. Coming out, moving down, nibble, come out, move down, tunnel, come out, move down, nibble, etc., etc., etc. So here again, by always keeping the point of our needle facing towards the beginning of the project, it just naturally made all of those X's for us. And just in case I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, that allows for a little bit of flexibility between all of those layers. So it gives a little bit more movement, a little more give, a little bit more forgiving in case, especially for pant legs, it starts moving around and getting a lot of motion going as the actors are using it. Okay, so again, for right-handed folks, it's just gonna be flipped opposite of that. You're gonna be putting your knot in up here, but same method, bringing it down to, bringing the knot in, starting with that one nibble and then bringing it down to the top layer, tunneling just a short distance, bringing it up, nibble, bringing it down, tunnel, bringing it up, nibble, bringing it down, tunnel. Okay? Again, catching just one thread of the ground fabric on the nibble, and you can take a little bit more generous of a bite when you're doing the tunneling, because it is never going through to the outside layer. Okay? So ideally, just like how we only saw those little picks on the whip stitch, we'd only see the little picks of these nibbles from the top there, okay? So, gonna start, I'm gonna do an anchor stitch just to be sure it doesn't pull through. So just right on the fold there, right on the inside, I'm gonna put my needle through, pull it snug, and then right going in the same place and coming out in the same place. I'm going to make the loop so it locks it in place. I'm going to jump right next to the fold on that ground outside layer of fabric, so just jumping straight across right here. I'm going to take a single, if I can see it, a single thread, okay, and pull that, oops, without getting caught on the pin, excuse me. All right, we're then going to come down to this top layer. I'm going to tunnel, if you can see that, in between the layers, maybe. If I can zoom it in there, maybe, without, okay, yep, tunneling in between the layers. So in between right there. Just a little bite, coming out. See, point is always facing towards the start of the project, like that. And you want to make sure that you pull tight enough that it's snug, but not so tight that it's puckering this up on itself, because that'll make it pucker and show from the outside, and we don't want that. So everything should look nice and clean and sitting smooth and neat with each other. And notice, as I move down to the next stitch, the next nibble of the ground layer of fabric, the outside layer of fabric, it's making that X for us. Hey, isn't that nifty? So we're going to take another nibble of fabric from the bottom layer. Just one thread, is that one thread? I think that's two threads. Nope, okay. Now it's one thread. Again, point facing towards the beginning, pull it through, and go back down to the top layer, tunnel, I think it feels like I caught a little bit more than just that top layer. So let me check, make sure I didn't go all the way through. Okay, we're looking good. So I can pull that. And as we move down to the next nibble, look at that, there's another X. So by keeping the point always facing towards the start of the project, that is what gives you the titular cross of the cross stitch. So hopefully this video was clear enough for you. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. My email address should be up on the University of Oregon website under graduate students. And for tying this off, once you came through back down on the ground layer of fabric, you can make a loop, go twice through the loop, pull it taut right there. Or if you want to do another anchor stitch, you can just put it through just a small little bite of fabric right there and create your loop that way. Put it through twice, pull it taut, whichever you prefer. Either way, hopefully this made sense to you. And as you can see, just itty bitty little picks. Okay? Great. So I wish you all happy sewing, and I hope your projects turn out well.